what I'm talking about, man.
The Super Bowl halftime show presented by Apple Music, of course, headlined by Kendrick Lamar. This was announced this past September. We've been anticipating this. We've been waiting on this. Obviously, Kendrick has had a stellar year, probably one of the greatest single years that any hip hop artist has ever had. And it's all sort of being capped off with this huge Super Bowl performance, literally the biggest stage in entertainment. It's going to be viewed and seen by more eyeballs than any other stage in America. And this is also coming off of just a few nights ago, an historic Grammy sweep in which he won 5 Grammy Awards for his single Not Like Us, the diss track that ultimately ended the beef between him and Drake. And so all eyes were on Kendrick, really. If you weren't into the game or if you weren't into the commercials, which really sucked this year, you were definitely looking for the Super Bowl halftime show to ultimately show up and deliver and be something that was going to be special. There's several things that we're going to talk about and dissect with this show. There's a lot of angles to look at it from, but just generally, what were your overall impressions and thoughts and takeaways from what Kendrick Lamar did at the halftime show?
I don't even know, honestly, how to put it into words. In a lot of ways, you just kind of have to see it for yourself to understand. Kendrick, man, this is really everything. I think as a long term Kendrick fan myself, that it's funny because Kendrick has even said it himself. He was like, all these years back then and doing all this, of course, you never really conceptualized doing a Super Bowl. Like, that's just not a thing early in anybody's music career. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to do the Super Bowl. And you got one mixtape and an album, you know what I'm saying? But it's crazy to see how over time things progress and things change, and that work ethic comes through and shines through, and you finally get the big thing. You finally get the Super Bowl, man. Not only that, but you break all kind of records. I mean, it's like the most watched almost anything ever besides the moon landing. He beat the record for the most watched Super Bowl halftime since like Michael Jackson. I mean, it's crazy to see how this has come full circle for Kendrick Lamar, all while being authentic and staying himself in all the right ways, man. It was an amazing halftime performance. It's funny, right before it started, of course, Chiefs is losing again, 0 points at halftime. I'm like, only thing that can bring us back at this moment is Kendrick Lamar, and my family's also a big Kendrick Lamar fan, so we were just like, Kendrick, get us back together, and he absolutely did, man. He brought us back to life with in every way. Again, I thought he would. And Kendrick Lamar has always had a knack for performing. That's why they gave him the Super Bowl. This isn't like a one-off new thing. And I think a lot of people are discovering Kendrick for the first time on this stage, and the way that he performs and the messages that he likes to give on the stages when he performs. Almost every performance he's ever done, to my knowledge, there has been some kind of message or some kind of statement that he is trying to make. And I love that he was able to do this again on the biggest stage possible. He made it black as hell. He made it in some ways celebratory for himself, while giving that very political and black message that he was giving. Man, it was just, I think, any and everything that I needed and wanted it to be. And again, if anybody's been a Kendrick fan for a long time, you walked away from that going like, yeah, that felt right. That felt like exactly how I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to be, man. But yeah, I loved every little part about it, man. It was a good time for the halftime.
So this has been a really long time coming to have a solo hip hop artist be the headliner, the main performer for the Super Bowl halftime show. It's never happened before. As close as we've gotten was just a few years ago with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and the ensemble of rap people that they had with them: Eminem, Kendrick Lamar himself, 50 Cent, Mary J. Blige, so on and so forth. But never has one hip hop artist had the privilege and the honor to be the sole performer at the Super Bowl halftime stage after 50 years of hip hop existing. And now it's finally happened. And I don't think it was any better person to be the first than Kendrick Lamar, based on the year that he's had. And overall, I thought that this show was absolutely incredible. I loved pretty much everything about it. It was almost flawless execution to me, especially somebody who is a massive Kendrick Lamar fan. I think I would probably consider him to be my favorite living artist at this moment. He's just putting out the best quality music. All of the things around his brand and his image and his performances and just everything that he does with such meticulous detail is something that I really, really enjoy. And what he did here was clearly much different than any other performance than we've ever seen at the Super Bowl halftime show. Typically, Super Bowl halftime shows have mostly been nostalgia driven. You see these big artists go on stage, perform their biggest hits because those are the crossover hits that likely the most people will know and be able to sing along with and relate to and remember, like, oh, yes, they did make that song 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever the case may be. Kendrick went for something completely different, decided to really focus in on where he is at the current moment. And when you look
Mhm.
at it from that perspective and where his thinking was, he nailed it. He completely nailed it in capturing where he is as an artist, where he is as a person, where he's going to go in the next few months and the next few years as an artist and as a person as well. And to be that bold and to stick true to who he is right now at this moment, as opposed to looking backwards, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was a stroke of genius. I thought that it was pretty courageous to do because when you get up there and you subject yourself to the criticism that he's already received for not performing certain songs, maybe leaning into a little bit too much of what's happening right now in the current moment, when you
Mhm.
open yourself up to that and you just stick to your vision, I'm giving you all the credit in the world. And that's what I want to see personally an artist do. I would rather you give me 100% what your authentic vision is right now, as opposed to what you think people want to see, as opposed to what you
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
the world is going to react to, or whatever the case may be, because that's what brought him to the dance to begin with. Kendrick has never really compromised who he is, what type of artist he is, what he goes after. And why would he start now? Just because he has the biggest stage at his disposal? He's already gotten so far being who he is. There's no reason to abandon ship at this point in time when he's literally acquired the Super Bowl halftime stage by just being who he is. And he stuck to that vision, he stuck true to it. And I loved it for that. And everything from the technical execution of it, the visuals were incredible. It was so cinematic. It felt like I was watching a movie. The
Mhm.
choreography was really, really good. His breath control, his rapping ability to just do it nonstop for 13 minutes and to just hit all these different numbers and all these different cues and the camera work and the blocking. I mean, everything I
Yeah.
thought was just fucking fantastic.
Mhm.
It's really wizardry what they pulled off. It's not easy to do. It takes 1,000 people to put together this type of show, and the what he delivered on that stage in front of over 120 million people. I think it's something that we'll be talking about for quite a long time, just because of the significance of it and just the fact that he was able to pull it off in the way that he did. And
Yeah.
I don't think we should take it for granted. I think it's one of those things where it's like, again, it is the first hip hop artist to do this, and hip hop historically, when you're looking at performances, are not known for choreography. They're not known for big
Mhm.
dance numbers and backup singers and dancers. Like, that's not known to be an element for live performance in hip hop. To be able to integrate those things almost seamlessly in this performance, I thought it was just so well done. So I just give all kudos, all credit to the team behind this. Mike Carson, of course, Dave Free, Kendrick
Yeah.
himself, and I got to
Mhm.
shout out my LB, my brother for life, Curtis Taylor Jr., who also was a part of the creative team on this show. He worked on the show as well. My God, y'all killed it. I thought that there was just like
Man.
a phenomenal showing, and it was just really, really incredible to see. And I know I'm probably biased because I am a huge Kendrick fan, but it's one of those things where it's like, if you're here for him and for the music, it probably worked for you.
Yeah.
But I do want to dive in a little bit more, because outside of just the performance aspects of it and the
Mhm.
songs that he chose, there was a lot of messaging, a lot of imagery. I mean, the whole thing
Mhm.
starts off with Samuel L. Jackson popping up as Uncle Sam. Nobody
Yeah.
better than Samuel L. Jackson to
Mhm.
sort of play on the idea and what we perceive Uncle Sam to be, historically a white man with a beard, where it's like, oh no, it's a black man now, and it's one of the
Mhm.
most recognizable actors in the world, basically opening up the great American game. That was the theme of
Yep.
this show. Even so far as that the whole stage and set design was modeled after a PlayStation controller. And this whole story that they were telling was this game that Kendrick was playing, which is also sort of a double entendre for the existence of black people in America and the game that we have
Mhm.
to play in order to survive and navigate life on a day-to-day basis, all the way down to the costumes, the red, the white, the blue, which could
Yep.
signify both the American flag as well as, gang relations, blood, Crips. There's
Mhm.
so much stuff in there. What did you think about just the visual striking imagery that they incorporated in this performance? Because that was one of the things I was the most curious about. What is it going
Yeah.
to look like? What are they trying to make us feel with the appearance of Kendrick himself, but then, of course, all the supporting players that showed up throughout the performance?
Yeah, the visuals, the visuals, the visuals, man. You said it. Shout out to the whole team. I've been following Mike Carson for a little bit, man. I think he's so tight, and the things that he comes up with these Kendrick shows, he's so crazy. But man, the red, white, and blue. Even the idea to even do red, white, and blue, and for Kendrick to purposely have on all three of those colors at the same time. And to, of course, I think the most iconic image that we've all kind of been talking about from this entire show was the kind of the recreation of the American flag with the background dancers, where the top left corner was all blue, in row by row was red, white to symbolize the American flag, with Kendrick standing right in the middle of the whole thing. I think that was just such a striking and interesting image that everyone keeps talking about. And it means so many things, right? It means it can mean, you already kind of said it, one, the Bloods and Crips, red, blue. I mean, he talks about it all the time. Kendrick Lee talks about Bloods and Crips like constantly in every album. I can't even think of a time where he wasn't talking about Bloods and Crips. Not only that, but of course, this country was built on the backs of Black people. So we literally represent the American flag, and you can see the way everybody is touching each other, and the way Kendrick just exists in the middle. There's just so many ways you can formulate and think about that moment, man. But I think that's what I think that's the essence of the message that he was trying to convey, is this great American game, and this moment is really it's almost like it's so interesting that it was Samuel L. Jackson and talking about the great American game, because it's almost like this is just it's both a celebration and almost like a cautionary tale at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one of the most impressive things about this whole thing. It's like, yeah, we're celebrating. Of course, you said the first solo hip hop artist to do this thing, but it's also like, America, this is real. Like, it's giving us history, and it's giving us future, and it's giving us present. And it's just like, wow, how are we doing all these things, all three of these things so well with in the smallest details? And I think that's really what it was about, man, is those three things: history, present, and future. It's really kind of always about that. But I think that's what Kendrick was trying to tell us. I think what the messaging was trying to tell us, with the political nature, for sure. I mean, there was a president that was there that was yeah, very, very interesting. But yeah, the political nature of our country, man, and where we come from, and what we need to do here coming in the near future. So yeah, it's a lot to discuss, but man, it's just to be that bold, to even start with that statement, or to even that be kind of the most striking imagery is saying a lot to me.
I mean, when he did his interview on Apple Music with Ebro and Nadeska, he talked about what to expect, and all he said was storytelling. And that's exactly what this was. It felt like it was a movie that was playing out in front of our eyes. I got Spike Lee energy, Spike Lee vibes, as soon as you see Samuel L. Jackson looking directly down the barrel of the camera, breaking the fourth wall, talking about what this is. This is the great American game. And then all of a sudden, in the opening few seconds, somehow 50 niggas popped out of a GNX. I don't know how they did that shit. They just kept coming out one by one. I'm like, where are y'all coming from? It was ridiculous. And then it leads into all of this stuff that we're talking about here, with the imagery, the flag, the colors, even the choreography, and those different moments in between the songs, when Samuel L. Jackson would reappear, and he would talk about, oh, no, you're too loud, you're too ghetto, calm it down, like you don't need to be this way. Literally the commentary that Black people have heard all the time, like, you're too loud, you're too ghetto, act different, code switch, whatever the case may be, in these white spaces, or these predominantly white spaces. And then you see Kendrick like cleverly play on that stuff, and he does kind of slow it down, he does kind of tone it down, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a second, no, I'm going back to who I am, I'm going back to the place that made me who I am. I'm not going to compromise just because we're in the presence of white people. And I find it so interesting that like all of these videos are coming out after the performance of all the people within Caesar Superdome, and nobody's like making noise, nobody's cheering, everybody looks like confused or maybe underwhelmed at the performance. And I'm like, well, that's kind of the point. Like, if you think about the actual audience that's at the Super Bowl, they're probably very wealthy people. Those tickets run 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 grand. Like, these are very wealthy people. So that audience is likely not going to be the people jumping up and down at a Kendrick Lamar concert. That's literally the point. Like, he's not performing for these people within the Superdome. I think he's performing for the common person at home that's like watching it on their TV. And he speaks about that within the show itself. Like, when Samuel Jackson makes those comments, that's a commentary on that very idea in and of itself. And I'm just like, he's already ahead of it. He already knows what people are going to say. He knows what people are going to be talking about, and he's way ahead of it. There's that moment where they do the the doo-wop version of Man in the Garden up
Oh
against the
my
light
god.
post.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
what the hell? That was incredible. I didn't see that
Mm-hmm.
coming. Just so many moments laced throughout the performance that were just like really, really genius. But that political imagery, and just the fact also that, any great artist can make things mean multiple things at once. Like there's no
Right.
one clear takeaway. And he's
Mm-hmm.
leaving it up to the public to debate about it, to talk about it, and to have discourse. Make up your own mind what you think it means. I'm not going to give
Mm-hmm.
you the answers. I think that's what most artists should be doing. And the beauty of it is that everything is so rich and so well thought out. It can mean this thing. It could be
Mm-hmm.
a both things can be true type of
Yeah.
situation as well. Like all of that stuff is very applicable to what he was doing here. I do want to talk about the song selection in and of itself. This is
Mm-hmm.
probably the element that's drawn the most criticism. And I guess to some people, this is probably a divisive reaction to this performance. I've seen a lot of opinions on both sides of it. People that loved it, people that just outright hated it, people that
Mm-hmm.
have notes and criticisms. He stuck mostly to GNX. He stuck
Yeah.
mostly to the now, the current moment. Few exceptions. All the Stars, DNA,
Mm-hmm.
Humble. There were
Humble.
there were a
Yeah.
few tracks that came from previous albums, but it was mostly this is what we're talking about right now. This is the current album. How do you feel about that choice? Because it's a choice. Because most people in the audience and even
Yeah.
people at home are not going to know these songs. They're
Mm-hmm.
probably likely going to know Poetic Justice or
Mm-hmm.
all of those other classic songs that he's put out. It's a bold thing to do, but it was obviously a very, very intentional thing that he decided to run with. What were your thoughts on just the song selection in and of itself, the actual set list, and how he integrated it throughout the performance, and just the idea that he decided to really just kind of focus on where he is at now as a current artist?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, I think me personally, I watched the Apple Music, pre-show interview with Kendrick, and so it was like I knew as soon as he said, I'm gonna try to stay current, like I'm not gonna go back too much. I was like, oh yeah, okay, so we're gonna be in GNet. Like I kind of already expected it, and I think for a lot of fans or people who didn't see that coming or did expect, I think something different. I can kind of see why they would be disappointed. I can see why they maybe wanted some other songs. I think to come to the forefront here. Maybe they did want to see Baby Keem. I know a lot of people were talking about they wanted to hear "Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe" or a song like that. Something a little older that they might know. But artistry is so interesting because I love what artists when artists choose to do something that's current. The Beyonce Bowl. Beyonce ain't do one song that wasn't on Cowboy Carter. This literally was the Beyonce Bowl. There was no other songs that was part of that show. And so I understand it's a different stage. This is the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna pretend like nobody won't watch the Beyonce Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Nor did I think people expected Beyonce to perform other songs. I think a lot of people did expect her to do Cowboy Carter only songs. So I love when artists are able to focus on their now, because a lot of times that's the stuff in a couple years it's going to age tremendously. We're going to look at it and be like, oh man, that was 2 albums ago. Yeah, it definitely was. Now it feels like a throwback show. But who better to do some on album hits than Kendrick Lamar? Some deep cuts, man. People ain't heard "Man at the Garden" for real, but the doo-woppers and the fans that heard the song was like, "Whoa, what's going on here? This is crazy." And I think it's just the right choice, man. I can kind of understand why people are disappointed by not hearing some of those other songs, but I like the idea of being in the now and going for the now. And it's also smart because this is the tour. You know what I'm saying? Like this show, this preview. This is the album, guys. This is what you're going to get. I think that's also kind of really smart in a lot of ways to stay in the now and talk about that stuff. But yeah, I think he's just a person who doesn't care about the past as much. I get it. A lot of artists say that. Tyler the Creator doesn't like his old stuff. Kendrick, I don't think he dislikes his old stuff. He's like, no, I just like to stay in the now. And again, a lot of artists are like that. So I think we should just accept it. And if they give us a good show, they give us a good show.
And it's not like he hasn't given us tours, performances, whatever the
I've seen
case
it
may
all.
be of these songs that have been performed.
Yeah.
Like we just had the Pop Out 6 months ago where he performed a lot of those hits, and obviously the audience is much different. Most people who watch the Super Bowl are not going to go seek out the Pop Out. I understand that. Like this is very much the biggest audience possible who's probably expecting to hear something familiar. And people who are let down by that, I can understand it. I can get that, and I can take that and understand it as a criticism. But for somebody who's actually a fan, and I'm probably not the right person to ask because I am a fan, but for somebody who's a fan who loves the album,
Yeah.
plays GNX constantly, and I'm very excited to see these songs played live for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. It's like, yeah, I'm very much here for it. And he's probably only speaking to those diehard people that really want to lean into that new current era that he's in at the moment. And he will likely alienate a lot of folks from feeling like that this was a great performance. But I think that that's okay. I think it's fine. We've gotten so many Super Bowl performances over the years, practically every
Mm-hmm.
one of them, where artists lean into their catalog. They lean into the
Yeah.
greatest hits, and it's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with that. I understand that approach as well. It's always going to work. And even at concert tours, when you pay money, you want to hear the songs that you know.
Exactly.
But
Mm-hmm.
for an artist to just say, you know what, fuck that, for one night, for one performance, for 14 minutes, we're just going to stick to where I'm at right now, how I feel right now, the place that I'm at, the man that I'm at this current moment. And we're going to be completely uncompromising in what that vision is and what we're trying to communicate here. And I just thought that it was great. I thought it was fantastic. So I don't blame him at all for going this approach. He could have easily picked 10 different sing-alongs that he has. Like,
You're
he has a
right.
catalog of songs that people will know, that people would have been very familiar with. And he decided to say, like, no, we're going to go to some of these B-side tracks. We're going to go to some of these tracks that thematically fit more in line with what I'm trying to accomplish here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the big moment, of course, Not Like Us. All the questions were around this song. Is he going to
Yeah.
perform it? Is he going to
Mm-hmm.
actually say Drake's name? Is he going to say pedophile? Like, all these questions have been asked repeatedly for the past few months, ever since he was announced. And again, him being extremely aware of what the conversation is, what people are talking about, what they're asking about, decides to incorporate this very element into the show. Teases Not Like Us numerous times before he decides to perform it. And for me personally, I was even doubting as to whether or not he was going to go there. He teased
Same.
it the first time. He's like, yeah, I want to play the favorite song, but people like to
Mm-hmm.
sue. And I'm like, oh shit, he probably won't perform it. But then, of course, at the end of it, he does bring Not Like Us back online, back in front of that stage, in front of the world, raps the entire first verse, basically unaltered, with the exception of
Mm-hmm.
pedophile. He didn't say that word, but pretty much unaltered, raps the entire first verse, gives us the meme of the year already out of it, and it just
Thank
goes
you.
fully head on at the song and what the whole situation with Drake has been. What are your thoughts just about how that played out? Just the tease, the lead up to it, and ultimately the execution, and what came from it, and the fact that, like, yeah, he did not back off at all, even in the midst of everything we've been talking about with the lawsuits and just what the song means and the defamation, all sorts of stuff. Just the stage that it was on. What were your thoughts on just seeing that song perform live in front of the largest television audience that we've ever had for anything?
Hey, he told us in the first opening lines of the show, the revolution about to be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. I was like, oh, what's about to happen, Kendrick? What are you saying to us right now? And I think, of course, it meant, of course, his reference to blackness in the show, of course, but I think it was also a little bit of like is he gonna do not like us on stage? Like, it was I think that's also part of, not necessarily the revolution, but you know what I mean. Like, can I say this on TV? Can we do this on national television, kind of type thing? And he definitely did. There were so many thoughts, and I was talking to my cousins at the time. Of course, he has that line where the first time he's kind of with the ladies behind him, and he's like, I'm about to do their favorite song, but people like to sue. And he's like, oh shoot, okay, let's slow it down. When he said when people like to sue, I said we done brought all the messiness to the Super Bowl stage. I we all know Kendrick to be unhinged. We know the person that he can be, the way Gemini's are. I'm looking at you too, man. But to say that in the middle of a Super Bowl show is just I didn't know. I didn't know, Kendrick. I didn't know. I wasn't ready, but I'm so glad that he did it, because like you said, I was also on the side of, I really don't know if he's going to do this. This is kind of crazy for the Super Bowl. I mean, everybody's watching. The world is watching. Again, I just say it's like the most watched thing ever besides the moon landing. What is happening here? And so, yeah, Drake, man. Drake is in Australia. He was in Australia touring, probably on purpose.
On purpose, for sure.
On purpose.
Absolutely.
I mean, he didn't want to be in America.
I would have gone out the country too. Fuck,
yeah,
I'm not going to be stateside.
He didn't want to be in the continent. He's on a completely different continent. He said, I'm not going to be here at all. And I get it. I understand. But yeah, bro, this is I'm happy he said game over in the end. You know, it was more than the Great American Game. It was that was definitely also aimed at Drake. It's really over. There's nothing else at this point. I think we can all wipe our hands and move on. Of course, the tours still going to happen. Don't get me wrong, but this felt like the dagger in everything. Like, yeah. And it was funny. We thought the Grammys was it. I thought the pop out was it. I thought every time I think it's over, it's not really over. But I really think after game over, it's like, all right, I think this is it for real. Like, there's nothing else left after this, man. And so, yeah, what a crazy moment in time. I love the memes that came out of it. I love the reactions that came out of it. You were just saying like there's videos of people like kind of being quiet during the performance. Well, I heard that A minor loud as shit, and I guarantee you that was not AI or made up or put into to the audio. That was definitely the stadium. I heard singing A minor right there, man. So yeah, what a moment in time. I know that moment even got a lot of controversy because a lot of people are saying Kendrick is bigger than Drake, but the song is bigger than Drake. I think that's the thing that I'm like, are y'all even getting what's happening here sometimes? So yeah, I don't know, man. But yeah, I love that he did it. I love the way he went about it. It was just perfect to me. I loved every second of it.
For the record, I do hope that this is the end. I do hope it's over. There's no better way to cap off this entire ordeal than what he did on Sunday, when it literally all started with first person shooter, with that line,
Yeah,
big as the what, big as the Super
what?
Bowl. That whole thing kicked off this entire beef that's lasted for damn near a year at this point.
Yeah.
For him to just look down at the barrel of the camera, chest out, and say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. I mean, it just doesn't stutter, doesn't pull back, just goes completely forward. My goodness, it's one of the most brazen, just one of the one of the most aggressive things that I've seen in a live performance. But that's what we expect out of Kendrick. The guy
Mm-hmm.
is not to be fucked with at all, and I think it's been proven time and time again. He's diabolical, y'all. He's very diabolical. He is numerously referred to himself as an old school Gemini. He leans into that for sure. Like, you don't want to cross him in the wrong ways. Next time we should probably revisit and rethink about how we approach anything with him in the future before we piss him off. Because when you take it to a certain level, he's clearly going to take it there and take it way further than anybody could have ever imagined. But that's the song everybody wanted to hear. It needed to happen. It needed to be
Yeah.
performed. There were reports that came out, from TMZ and other outlets basically confirming, like, yeah, this song is happening. The
Mm-hmm.
NFL doesn't have any notes. It's just going to go down the way it's going to go down. And I'm glad that we're in that place to where the NFL is like, let the artist be the artist. Let the vision rock. Of course, you can't say pedophile at the NFL Super Bowl. We get that. We
Exactly.
understand that. But within
Yep.
reason, go off, my guy. Do your thing. Perform your artistry. Perform your realness. Like, this is one of the only avenues in which you can get away with something like that. Like, think about
Yeah.
that.
That's
If
true.
somebody came at me and I decided to accuse them of all this shit and go back at them, or if there's a physical altercation, I'm going to jail. Like, my ass is grass. It's over. But Kendrick, as an artist, he can kind of do whatever he wants because he's using a creative outlet and a creative medium to get off his thoughts, and that's how this whole thing is played out. And I mean, this is just a beat down of all beat downs, and more
Man.
belt to ass for Drake at this point. Like, there's no other way to put it. We already knew it was decisively over, but this is literally slamming the casket shut. Like, dead
Mm-hmm.
body, you're gone. We're burying you for good now. And what a fucking 7-day stretch to win 5 Grammys for this song and then perform it at the Super Bowl and then concurrently give us the meme of the year. And not only that, fucking Serena Williams pops up and is crip walking all over the stage, creating her own viral moment. That's a whole other aspect to it. The ties, of course, with Compton, but then of course she used to date Drake. And then we
Mm-hmm.
rounded out with TV Off. Mustard comes out, Game Over pops up. I just thought it was fantastic. I thought it was a really, really fantastic showing across the board. Now, I do want to ask, when we talk about the Rock Nation produced Super Bowls,
Mm-hmm.
this is the 6th one that they've done. They
Mm-hmm.
started in 2020 with Shakira and J Lo. Then the weekend, the year after that, that was the sort of the weird COVID setup. 2022 in LA, of course, was Dre, Snoop, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick himself. 23, we had Rihanna. Last year, we had Usher, and then of course Kendrick Lamar this year. Do you have any thoughts on where you would rank all of these performances, where you would rank
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick in this listing, and just ultimately how these shake out for you in terms of your favorite to, I guess, the least favorite out of these 6 that we've seen from Rock Nation over the past few years?
Oh, man, it's really hard to say because it's Kendrick is just so fresh, and that's the thing. I'm like currently just so biased about. Like, man, that thing was crazy. I kind of would love to go back and I think watch them side by side and kind of rank them after I do that. Right now, Kendrick is just like thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like number one, again, I'm super biased though. I've been a Kendrick fan for so long. He is my favorite artist. Kind of living right now. So it's just like, man, Kendrick, you did that thing, man. But it, I mean, Rihanna was beautiful. Usher was beautiful. And Usher was skating around the dang. It's crazy. We did have some really good some really good Super Bowls, man. Let me think. I think I'm gonna go I'm gonna go Kendrick number one. It's really hard because every time I think about another show, I was like, dang, but that was also really good. And
Yeah,
that
these
was
are all
actually,
legends we're talking about
they're
basically at this point,
all
with hits
legends,
and
man.
known to be great performers. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely, they've, in terms of the artists that they've picked and
Yeah.
what they go after on a year-to-year basis, I think that they've done a really good job at least
Mm-hmm.
picking the artists. Sometimes the execution, we'll have questions
Mm-hmm.
about that. You might have notes, but it makes sense for who they went after. Like they've gone after really big names, but also names that people can relate to. I mean,
Yeah.
we went through like a good 8-year stretch where we were getting, and no disrespect to these bands, but we were getting like Tom Petty and we were getting Bruce
Mm.
Springsteen, and it's
We got
like,
the Who at one
and the
point.
Who,
Yeah.
it's like these are legends to a certain
Mm-hmm.
demographic that's probably aged up quite a bit. I think us younger folks was like, after the whole Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake thing, they got very conservative in who
Mm-hmm.
they picked, and it wasn't until Rock Nation came on that they kind of decided to get back to more of the current artists, or at least like the legacy acts that are a little bit more relevant to Gen X and millennials, at this day and
Yeah.
age. But yeah, they've done a great job picking them. So it is kind of hard to rank them. I definitely think it's one of those practices where it's like it's probably good to go back and watch a
Mm-hmm.
few of them to remember how you feel and just the song selection and ultimately the execution of it.
Yeah, because especially I'm just thinking. I think also part of it is how sometimes reaction and how people felt afterwards. And I just remember Shakira and J Lo was like, people were just like, "Oh my god," you know what I mean? Like it was just a big moment for a lot of people too. I remember how important that was for people. I mean, they brought out Bad Bunny, like that was crazy at that time, man. It was like, whoa, Shakira and J Lo kind of did that thing, and then the weekend he made it as cinematic as he could. You know, he's
Yeah.
doing all kind of stuff. It's just like, man, what's going on here? But if I had to just go off the top right now, I'm gonna say Kendrick number one. Number two, I'm gonna actually go ahead and give it to Dre and Snoop. I just the one I think a king that I like the most. Three, I'm gonna give to Rihanna. Um, Four, sure. Also a lot of bias there. And then five, the weekend, and then six, who I'm missing.
Oh, Shakira
Um,
and J Lo.
Shakira and J Lo, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there. I think that's right for me, man. At least for right now.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I got it's very much recency bias and just favoritism. Kendrick is
Yeah,
number one. Like that's I've already watched it like 7 times, if I'm being honest. Like
same.
I don't typically go back and watch these all that often, but I did go back and try to like watch all of these just to remember like just the
Hmm.
performance and like what they did and what they were going after. But Kendrick is one for me. I also have Drake, Snoop, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and Kendrick at
That
two.
was good.
Three for me is Usher. It
Yeah,
was it was a lot going on. It was so
it
many things
was.
happening. He was doing, simultaneously a Las Vegas aesthetic, but he also had like a lot of
Hmm.
HBCU stuff going on. It was a lot, the
Hmm.
roller skating, but his hits are just so undeniable. When he plays those songs, it's like, my God, Usher has endless hits. Actually, after Usher, though, I have Shakira and J Lo. They
Hmm.
also had a lot of fucking incredible hits in their performance, just the dancing, the
It
backup
was
singers
good.
and dancers, the Bad Bunny inclusion. They had a lot of great stuff. The Weekend is next for me after that. It produced a lot of memes, and it was a weird year because he was in the stands, he wasn't on the field. There were like restrictions with the turf and stuff, and
Hmm.
he had the whole like fun house thing that was kind of its own moment. But he did go cinematic, and I appreciated that. And then at the bottom, I do have Rihanna, and I liked Rihanna's performance, but it was probably the most bare bones of everything that we've seen,
Hmm.
and that's not a bad thing. Like she has hits that can they can stand on their own. She doesn't need a ton of stuff behind that, but she was somewhat limited because she was very, very pregnant.
Pregnant. Yeah.
Not a ton of choreography, not really any outfit changes. It was just like a really simple, basic
Hmm.
performance, which I didn't hate, but I think that would be my least favorite. But I think across the board, these have mostly been really solid to sometimes even great. These Super Bowl
Agreed.
halftime shows. I don't know how long that agreement between Rock Nation and the NFL is going to be, but I think keep it
Keep it
going.
going.
It's generating so much conversation, so much talk.
Hmm.
It's like it's becoming the most talked about thing outside of these games that comes from the Super Bowl at this point. So you might as well just keep it going while you got a hot hand. But Folks, those are all of our thoughts on Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show. If you got a chance, of course, to check it out, which everybody has at this point, hit us up and let us know what you think about it.